If you're a painting contractor and you're broke, in this video, we are going to fix it. It is so easy to make $3,000 to $5,000 per week in profit in this business. And in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how I would do it if I was starting from scratch and needed to make money fast. This playbook has 4 main moves that you've got to make to start making $3,000 to $5,000 in profit per week. Hundreds of people have used this playbook to make a lot more money quick. And then at the end of the video, we'll talk about where to go from there once you're making more money. Let's dive in. There are 3 main phases to building a painting business, and if you're broke and tight on cash, you're still in phase 0. I used to teach people that there was just phase 1 and phase 2 of building a business. This is where we're building the foundation, and then we're building the team. And there's certain focuses that we need to do in each phase of building the business, and there's a general strategy that applies to that same phase. We'll come back to 1 and 2 a little bit later. And then I realized that there's actually something that happens before you even build a foundation in the business. And that's what I called phase 0. This is when all you need in the business is to create consistent, stable cash flow. If you start a business and you're not even making consistent cash flow, if you're stressed about your bills, where your rent's coming from, payroll, things like that, it's really hard to focus on actually building systems and building the business the right way. The very first thing we need is just consistency with cash flow. And for us, we're just gonna say that's at least 10 to 15K per month in cash flow. These are the 4 levers that we can pull to make 10 to 15,000 a month in profit really easy. And a lot of people I work with end up making 3K to 5K per week in profit with this really simple playbook. First, we need marketing. That's going to get us more leads and estimates. We need sales. We need to get a basic sales process in place to win jobs. We need a project management system in place and find crews. And then we need to get our pricing dialed in. There's a really fast and efficient way to do each of these 4 things. But the way that we operate in phase 0 is hustle, grit, and will. At this stage of the business, you are bringing something into existence that doesn't exist yet. And that's the mode of operating. We're going to talk about a different mode of operating in phase 1 and phase 2 because as the business changes, so does how you build the business. That also changes. In this stage of the business, you need to hustle, you need to bring grit and willpower to create cash flow, and then we will use that cash flow to parlay into future growth. So we'll get into that later. For now, let's dive into these 4 levers. You can make $10,000 in profit this month if you're willing to go door to door. All right, so let's just break down some simple math. So if we can sell $40,000 in business in a month, then we can take $10,000 down as a deposit or down payment. That's a 25% deposit. And then when we produce those jobs, we're gonna pay $20,000 to our materials and labor, and we're gonna collect the remaining $30,000, that's the balance payment of 75%, and make another $10,000. So this is profit where we can make $20,000 per month by selling $40,000 because we have no other expenses because we're going door to door. So then how do we sell $40,000 in a month? Well, your average job size is probably $5,000. Which means we need 8 jobs per month, which means we need 2 jobs per week, which means we need 6 estimates per week. We need 10 leads per week, which means we need 10 hours of door-to-door marketing per week. That's it. And if you go door-to-door marketing for 10 hours, you get 10 leads, 6 of them you set up for estimates. If your sales isn't very good, you book 2, and this is how these numbers play out. So look, if you're broke in the business and you really, really need money, that's got to be a really, really hard position to be in. And the reality is you don't have to be in that position because there are thousands and thousands of houses out there in your market that you can go walk up to the door, knock on the door and get a lead from and do an estimate and make money. If you're really, really tight on cash and broke, then this is the only thing you should be doing with your time. Get out there 10, 15 hours a week. There's other things you can do for marketing, sure. But the most impactful, most efficient, most guaranteed way for you to get business if you don't already have a bunch of money to invest in marketing is door to door. There's nothing else that you should be doing that gets even close to the return on your time as door-to-door marketing does. And so if this is you right now and you are serious about getting out of this situation in your life and you are serious about building the business, then get out there and knock on doors and start drumming up some business and cash flow. This is not something you have to do forever, and I don't think it's something you should do forever. In fact, door to door is best to just get the cash flow going, and then we can use that cash flow to start investing into more efficient forms of marketing so you don't have to spend all your time doing door to door. This is not a forever thing. This is a right now thing. It is a way for you to make an insane amount of money very, very fast. And these numbers are very realistic because I've seen it done hundreds of times over. You just need to go do this consistently for 10 to 15 hours a week for the next 2 to 3 months. And if you do that, you will get leads, you will do estimates, you will sell jobs, and you will start making the money that you need to get out of this trap that you're in and start investing into marketing and truly building your business. This is exactly how to get leads door to door for your painting business. I'm gonna break down 2 things for you. First, we're gonna break down the door-to-door plan, like just how you do it logistically, and then we'll talk about the script. So first, let's look at the plan. You can hit 40 houses per hour. Of course, you can hit more than that. I used to run through neighborhoods so I could get leads faster, so I could spend less time knocking on doors and more time playing video games. You can get 1 lead per 40 houses. That's, of course, an average. I have people who are really good at this who do better. There are people who aren't as good who do worse, but that's a pretty solid expectation for the average person going door to door is 1 lead per 40 houses. You wanna make sure that when you go door to door, you hit every single house. You don't need to see chipping paint and fading paint to knock on the door. The first job I ever booked, the paint job looked perfect on the front, but you walk around to the back of the house and it looked terrible. You want to target middle to upper income areas. So we're not talking huge custom homes. We still want to be focused on those track homes, model homes, where all the houses are pretty close to each other. It was built 10 to 20 years ago, but the lawns are manicured, the cars are nice. Those are the kind of areas that we want to focus on so we can hit a lot of houses, but it's definitely people who take care of their property. If you want 10 leads in a week, then you got to hit 400 doors. Now, generally speaking, I used to get, and most people I've coached get, about 70% of their leads to set up an estimate. So if you want 7 estimates, get 10 leads. If you want 10 leads, get 400 doors. Like, this is just the math for how much door to door you should do to get to the leads and estimates you want. And then keep the pitch simple, follow it, we'll get to it in a second. Make sure you got a good attitude, have some fun out there, smile, enjoy the day, enjoy the weather, enjoy walking around, and then just realize it's a numbers game. Most people are gonna say no, that's fine. You need 1 yes per hour. Most people aren't gonna be home and answer their door. That's fine. You don't need that many people to answer, you need a lead an hour. And you don't need to do this forever. So just relax, get out there, make it happen, and look, I've had a lot of people do this. The key is it's never as bad as you think, and people are always nicer than you realize. It ain't that bad. It's gonna build your business and it's gonna make you a lot of money. So now, once you're out there hitting all the houses and cruising through these neighborhoods, what are you actually gonna say at the door? So we're gonna walk through the script and then I'll give you a quick mock. So the script goes like this. I knock on the door, and then they open, I say, hey, how's it going? And I hand them a flyer. Hey, how's it going? And then I wait for them to respond like I'm actually asking them a question. They say, oh, I'm doing good, how are you doing? I say, hey, I'm doing good. I'm doing good too, thanks. Hey, I'm Eric, so this is your name, with company. I'm Eric with Foothills Painting. I noticed some problem on part of house. So I noticed you had some peeling paint up on your windows up there. So, since I noticed that, I just wanted to give you a free estimate. And that's the whole script. Hey, how's it going? I'm Eric with Foothills Painting. I noticed some peeling paint, some fading paint on the window trim and up above the garage. So I just wanted to give you a free estimate. When you mention the problem, you point to the problem. And when you tell them you want a free estimate, you put your pen to paper, you look down, then up, then down again, and you assume it. Like you're just signing them up for an estimate. Of course, they're going to say yes. So it goes like this if you put it all together. Knock, knock, knock. They answer the door and I say, hey, how's it going? They say, good, how are you? And I go, oh, I'm doing good, thanks. I'm Eric, I'm with Foothills Painting. I actually noticed you had some peeling paint up here on the trim, so I just wanted to put you down for a free estimate. And that's it. And if you get the pitch right, most of the leads you get aren't an emphatic yes. They just are a little confused and they go, yeah, sure, okay. You say, oh, great. And then you start talking to them. You say, great, let me just grab your name. What's your name? Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Eric. Cool. And then what's the address here? It's 772, Main Street Way. Cool. So yeah, have you guys been thinking about painting? Did you notice the peeling paint? You did? Have you noticed it anywhere else around the house? And then we can go into like developing the lead, developing the sale. And then we say, hey, we'll give you a call later to schedule a time. Does that work for you? Is this the best number to reach you at? So nice to meet you. You guys got any fun plans today? Cool. I'll let you get back to it, and we'll talk soon, and we'll get that estimate set up. So that's the plan for door to door. If you literally run that script and you hit these houses, like, you will get leads, you will get estimates. And this is the fastest, most efficient way, and it's free to get you to 6 or 7 estimates a week, which is more than you need. And then we'll start making money and go from there. This is how you sell a paint job at a premium price, which is the price you need to be at. From 2006 to 2010, I trained 100 college students how to sell paint jobs. So these were 18, 19-year-old kids with no background in painting, no background in business, no background in sales. And I would teach them how to sell a paint job, and they would sell 50% of their estimates at a premium price. We were one of the highest prices in the market. So here's how we did it. There were literally 3 things that we trained them on heavily so that they could go and close deals as a newbie. The first is we trained them heavily on the initial phone call. This is the phone call that we use to set up the estimate. Most people just talk to a customer, say, yeah, you want a paint job? Yeah, I can help you out. What's your address? What are you looking to get done? Cool, when can I come by? And that's it. When you have a really detailed initial phone call to set up the estimate and set expectations, your job is to set up an estimate that is bookable. You've got all the decision makers there. You've got them there for an hour and a half where you can do all the sales process that you need to, find out what they need and want, customize the quote, measure the whole thing, write it up, deliver it on the spot. That's all from the initial phone call. And the initial phone call will sell you paint jobs. The second thing we would train them on is what we call pre-closes. Pre-closes are where we give customers a reason to buy, usually in the form of saving money. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but if you can somehow give an incentive to a customer to make a decision on the day of the estimate, then they're gonna show up to the estimate in a buying state of mind rather than like a shopping state of mind. And it's gonna drive your sales rate up substantially. And then the third thing we would do with these college kids is say, now just go make a friend and build as much rapport as possible. And that was it. And so it doesn't take much for you to outsell the competition. Now, rather than going through a full sales training in this video, I'm gonna link below the video a few different videos that I've done on sales, that if you just follow what is in those videos, you will have a stronger sales process than a lot of your competition. So check out the links below this video and go watch that sales training. If you just start implementing a few things, it will significantly improve how many jobs you win and the price you can charge when you win those projects. All right, so let me give you the 2 most important things that you can do in your sales process today to start winning more jobs. The first one is deliver your estimates on the spot. A lot of people meet with a client and find out what they need and want and then say, cool, I'll get you the estimate in a day or 2. They go home, work the numbers, come up with the price and email it over later. If you just start giving it to them at the time of the estimate, your sales rate will go up and it will save you time. Start doing that immediately. The second thing I'm gonna suggest you do is watch the video that I'm gonna link below in the description. It's our 5-step sales process. Our clients have sold billions of dollars in paint jobs over the years following the sales process. We have sold over $100 million following the sales process. Watch that video and implement the basics. It doesn't take much to help you start winning more jobs at higher prices. 95% of contractors mess up their pricing. We speak with hundreds of painting contractors every single week, and 19 out of 20 people we meet with are not making enough gross profit in their business. Let me tell you what that means. So at the top, you have your price. This is what you're charging to the customer. And then you have your what's called cost of goods sold. This is your labor and materials for the project. It's what you pay your subcontractors plus materials, your employees plus materials. And that leaves you with your gross profit. Now, what we need to have to scale the business and do it in a healthy way is we need this number to be 50%, which means if we charge $10,000 for a project, we need the cost of goods sold or the labor and materials to be $5,000 so we make $5,000 in gross profit. Now, most people in this business are not making 50%. They're making somewhere between 30 and 50% gross profit, which just isn't enough money. And there's only two ways that we can increase gross profit. The first is we can increase our price, or we can decrease labor materials. But you can't really decrease your materials because, paint costs what it costs, and you need this much paint to paint the house. So we can't really fix materials. And then labor, we can only improve on by changing to piecework instead of paying hourly. Most of the time, people aren't charging enough money. And the reason people aren't charging enough money is because if you've only got 2 estimates a week, you really need some work. And if you don't have a strong sales process, then the only way I can make sure to land one or both of those jobs is by lowering my price to the point where the customer says yes and has to say yes. And so we don't want to fix our marketing and sales problem by reducing our price. Instead, we actually need to increase our price, and then we've actually got to fix our marketing problem door to door. If you have 6 estimates a week, you don't need to be desperate. And then we fix the sales process. Hey, follow that sales process. And now we don't need to be needy. We're just going to do a couple more estimates a week than we used to, but we're going to make way more money because we're charging the right price. There are 2 ways that you can get your estimating fixed. The first one is you can use our estimating forms. I'm going to link those below the video. They're really basic, really simple. There's an estimating guide, estimating forms, and a brief training video. You can use those. Those estimating forms we used until we were doing $3.5 million a year. There was no fancy software for quoting and pricing when I was starting the business. So you can download the estimating forms below, or you can go and sign up for Paint Scout or Drip Jobs to help you with your estimating and pricing. The second thing that you can do though is you can just do what I call a price multiplier. This is where we're just gonna fix your price like that. So if you already run a painting business and you already have a way you price a house, this is for you. So imagine you walk up to a house and I just say, hey, how much is that job gonna cost? And you're like, that's a $5,000 job. I'd charge $5,000 for that. If you already know that, cool, you don't need to change anything. We're just gonna come up with a multiplier. So this is how it works. Let's say right now you charge $10,000 for a project. Then I say, okay, on a $10,000 job, how much will you pay for labor and materials? And you say $7,000. And then I say, okay, so then what the price should be is now double that. Your price should be $14,000. And so now what we do is we take $14,000 over $10,000 equals 1.4. That becomes your multiplier. So the next time you go bid a job, you say, hey, that's a $5,000 job. You're gonna go 5,000 times 1.4. In this case, that would be 7,000. And now you charge $7,000 for that project, and you pay $3,500 for your labor and materials. And now we're at the 50% margins that we need to be at. Now this might seem scary for some people where you're like, man, 5,000, I'm charging 7. That feels like a lot more money. Dave's one of my clients, and he went to his very first estimate after he started working with me. So he implemented a couple of the sales things. He went to the estimate, and normally he would charge $3,000 for this job, but I told him charge $5,000 for it. And he's like, yikes, normally it'd be 3, I'm gonna charge 5. All right, he walked in, showed him the proposal, and they looked at each other and just said, yeah, looks good, let's do it. And right there, he made an extra $2,000 because he just charged the price that he should actually be charging. You're undercharging. You need more estimates, you need a sales process, and then we gotta charge the right price. You only need one good painting subcontractor to make $150,000 a year in profit. So let me break those numbers down. So at this point, you're doing door-to-door and you're getting leads, you're following a sales process, you're winning jobs, and you're pricing it properly. Now we just gotta find one really good subcontractor. So when I first started my business, the very first day I knocked on doors, I got 11 leads. Then I set up 6 of those people for estimates. I went and did those estimates and I booked 5 jobs. 3 of the jobs were touch-ups. One person needed their window trim touched up, another needed window trim touched up, and another one needed the back side of their house touched up. There's a bunch of flaking paint going on. It was like a $600 job, $600 job, $900 job. Those 3, I just went and did them myself. I did like a $600 touch-up job in like 3 hours. And then I went down the street, did another 3 hours for $600, and then the next day I did a job for $900 and made whatever that is, $2,100. in 2 days. But the other two were like full houses. So one of them was like a $2,700 project. The other was $4,500. So I went, I found one really good subcontractor. And I hired that subcontractor for a flat rate for the labor and materials. And all I did was meet him the first day of the project. I met him every day at the project. It took me like 30 minutes. We finished the job and I made way more money on those two houses than I did the 2 full days painting, and all I had to do is check in every day. Here's how the math plays out. Project management is one of those parts of the business that eats people's time, where they're constantly going to the paint store, going to job sites, micromanaging projects because they feel like they have to. And you have to for only 2 reasons. One is you don't have competent crews. If you don't have competent crews, yeah, you need to be there. But the problem is you don't have competent crews. So we just got to get a really good crew. The second reason people are constantly involved in the jobs is because they don't trust their competent crew, which is a you problem. So the answer to efficient project management and really growing the business is you need to find a really good subcontractor. Now, you only need 8 painters to do $1 million a year in the painting business. It's about 2 painters for every 250K. And so 8 painters is $1 million. Your average subcontractor has 2 or 3 guys. And so you could very reasonably hire 2 subcontractors who each have 3 guys and they paint themselves. And that's 8 total painters. And those 2 subcontractors could do $1 million a year for you. Or another way to look at it is I could hire 1 subcontractor who can do $500K a year. And if they're doing it at 50% profit, then I'm making $250,000 on that. And if I'm doing door-to-door to get the leads, then I have no other costs. I'm making over $200,000 a year after any other overhead and expenses. So the key here is investing the time to find a very talented, high caliber subcontractor. And if you're watching this saying they're not out there, then you haven't looked hard enough, because I assure you they are. You need financial stability and you only have to do 4 things to get it. I started my whole painting career in college, training college students how to run a painting business over the spring and summer. So when I graduated from college in 2010, I started a painting business so that I could have freedom. I knew how easy it was to make $50,000 to $70,000 a year, which is for me all I needed at the time. I only needed to know 4 things. I needed to know how to get a lead. I knew how to do it. Just go knock on doors, follow that plan, follow that script, and you get leads. I knew how to turn those leads into paying customers by following a pretty basic, pretty simple sales process, because the competition isn't doing any sales process. I needed to know how to find 1 really good subcontractor, which I knew how to do. You post the ads, you get a lot of applicants, and you find 1 good subcontractor who can produce those jobs for you. And then I just needed to make sure I priced it well enough that I was making a good enough margin. I knew how to do those 4 things, and that's why I started a business, was because with those 4 things, I could make all the money I ever needed, and you can too. Now, once we do these 4 things, we can create consistent cash flow. Once you have consistent cash flow, where do we go from there? Well, then we need to grow the business further, and we got to build the foundation of the business. So what that means is we have to get everything a lot more dialed in. You need to have a business plan and know your numbers. We need to make sure your marketing gets better, and we need to position away from door to door. We need to start getting your website, SEO, referrals, repeat business, and your paid ads working, so you're not spending all your time going door to door. We need to continue to improve your sales process. We need to continue to improve the project management process, and we need to make sure that we have an estimating system in place to get consistent numbers. We need this foundation in place so that we can successfully build a team. Now, the way that we're going to grow the business and make more money in this phase of the business is through mastery. We make more money because we get better, not because we work more. So we might be able to get to a $500,000 a year business in phase 0, $10,000 a week. Make $100,000, $150,000 a year. Very doable right here with just the basics. But then when we get into phase 1, we can grow the business from $500K to $750K. We can grow income to $200,000, $250,000 without working more hours. How? Because we master the business. We get really good at all these different things here. But at some point you run out of time And that's when we transition to building a team. And there's really just two things we do when we build a team. We hire and we train. And then every time we bring on a new team member, we increase marketing. So we spend more money and grow the business so that you make more money with every hire. And we just repeat this over and over. Now, once we get into this part of the business, it's all about creating leverage and doubling down on just training and investing in your team. And this is how we grow the business, and we can go from $750,000 up to $3 million per year. This is how we make $500,000 a year with a team running the day-to-day. This is ultimately what we do at Painting Business Pro, but it all starts here with the absolute basics. So I hope this video helps you make more money and make it fast so you can start to create freedom from this business.